Be it. Yes, there we go. We are now live, and for the moment, it's just the three of us. But I'm sure others will be joining in soon. And yeah, let's face it, as long as there's two of us, there's a conversation. And we'll jump straight in. Bill, what have you been up to this week?
This is San Diego Startup Week this week, and as soon as we get out of here today, I'm going to race into downtown San Diego and try to find my first session of the day, which is pitching journalists, which should be fun.
Bill?
Today was the day they had all the marketing type sessions. So my afternoon is booked with those.
Any speakers that you're looking forward to hearing?
The keynote speaker is a venture capitalist from Southern California, probably one of the busiest. His name is Mark Sister, and he looks interesting. It should be fun.
Yeah. Now, how long do keynote speakers usually speak? Like, how long are their addresses?
He's scheduled, I believe, for about an hour. I don't know if it's typical for this. He's the only keynote speaker of the week.
Cool. It seems to be
a lot of sessions. There are like 108 sessions.
That'd be quite a thing to be the king of.
Yeah, I've seen keynotes that were sort of 30 minutes, and I've seen a lot that are sort of an hour. So I think those are the two that sort of are the typical ones.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've seen we've got Aidan with us yet again. Good to see him. And Iblis Bain joining us for his very first time watching this. So.
Oh my goodness.
And Elena is there as well. So we do have some people watching as well. Yeah. And back from Oz, Jen, how are you? How was your trip?
It was really good. I am very jet-lagged and just woke up from a nap because I only got back last night, so I'm still adjusting.
So we should ask you all the hard questions now.
You got some really interesting answers, I'm sure.
So, how was the trip? I mean, did you get lots done, or was it, pure business?
I did take some days and kind of went and did some of the touristy things. I went to a couple of botanical gardens. I went to Melbourne for a couple days for totally just go to see Melbourne, and yeah, it was really good. I had a really good time. I hit 2 different conferences, spoke at 2 of them. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Cool. So I'm hoping the weather was pretty good for you.
Oh no.
No, yes. I mean, it's their winter now, so I mean,
Yeah. So of course, when you plan a search conference, winter's obviously the best time to do that. So we actually in Sydney there was like major storms that rolled through, and it lots of rain, and like I discovered, especially when I was in Melbourne, that the weather is either sunny or it's like total monsoon, like where it rains for 30 seconds and you're like just drenched. It's pretty interesting.
No.
And I'm used to rain here, but the rain there is different.
They don't want to do a conference in the summer unless it's all about barbecues and the outdoors.
Exactly, right?
If they do an SEO on the beach conference, then Australia in the summer is a good place for it.
Yeah, when I got there, the first few days were like gorgeous and sunny, and then pretty much the whole rest of the time was fairly crappy.
Yeah. How's the weather for you, Bill? It must be a lot nicer being over that part of the world in a way.
It's sunny and in the 70s. It doesn't change too much from day to day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm a little bit jealous. I saw Jen with pictures of her hugging koala bears. And,
yes.
Yeah, it caught me, that picture, because at first I thought, I didn't know John Mueller was over there, and then I realised. Hey Fab, how you doing?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, a different setup this time. Look at the giant sofa.
I'm testing a new room.
Yeah, either that or that's a normal armchair and Fab's a lot smaller than you ever realised.
Probably as big, but like.
So, Kristin, now that we can actually hear you this week, what have you been up to this week?
Okay, well, I finished my interview video project, well, the first of a series in WriteTag, Meet the People of WriteTag. I'm getting to meet developers and web designers, and so, of course, I'm, like, totally in heaven. Just geeking out over, like, them mentioning a little bit of code here, code there. I'm like, I kind of know what that is. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Cool. Has there been any parts of it that have been really good learning experiences? Anything?
Yes. Video editing. Yeah. So when Windows 10 says that Movie Maker is not necessarily compatible with it, like they're for serious. And I had to do like a bunch of workarounds, and I don't even know how I finagled it all in there. I wound up using that Movie Maker. I wound up using QuickTime Pro, which is like have like 4 different video editing programs because I couldn't get my Lightworks to work. And then of course when I did a clean install of Windows, and like it goes easily now. So.
Yeah. Yeah. If anyone's
my
just
big lesson is like get rid of all the junk on your computer that you possibly can before you start a big project.
Yes. Yes. And take this as a lesson about, you know, when to install apps and when not to install apps. If you don't have to install it, don't install it as an app. Always go for the software. Especially, there's tons of things that actually work better as a standalone software anyway. A lot of people don't like the Skype app, for instance. It's only the actual proper program that you know has all the features and runs the way we like it. But yeah, the apps tend to sort of stay running and be real resource hogs.
I really like Skype web, like their web version.
Mm-hmm.
Like I find that I've never had a problem with that one. And that, of course, would be light on your system, right?
It's funny. I mean, Skype is now sort of one of the real granddaddy programs of communication. It's amazing how long it's been around and remained one of the most useful communication tools. I still use Skype, you know, every week for business. I could probably cope with the loss of almost any social media platform except Skype, you know, more easily.
I'm starting to wonder now how much LinkedIn is gonna integrate Skype into it.
For sure.
I'm hoping it does, and I can see some good things there. I'm not entirely surprised by the purchase. Yeah, it was quite a bit of money, but I think it rounds out what Microsoft has quite well, and more importantly, it rounds out where they're going. You know, we've talked a lot about the next generation of search is all about search assistance in the social media platforms where we are, which kind of means anyone that wants to be in that game needs to have both some search technology, some AI technology, and of course a social media platform big enough to play with to develop it.
Who do you think is next one? Pinterest or Twitter? No?
I think both of them, because they're not that text-based, are quite low on the pecking order. Let's face it, Pinterest for a lot of people is a supplemental social media platform. You know, it's great for sharing some things, but it doesn't have the depth of conversation of some of the other channels.
I kind of think of it as more of like a me thing, like it's a my app thing. I don't have to worry about sharing it out to other people because it's things that I collect. So that's why I think that it has a place as unique. Because it's not trying to compete with social in that regard.
It feels to me almost like an evolution of something like Flickr.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a really useful way of being able to share images. It's predominantly image-based. It's a very visual thing. Works great for mobile phones, but I'm not sure it has the depth to be, you know, a standalone thing. I think it's always going to be a second string to the bow.
It can
Like
drive a
someone's-
lot of sales, though. Like, there's a lot of businesses that are doing phenomenally well selling their products just because people feature it on Pinterest.
Definitely.
But does their advertising work in a sense that are they actually scaling currently their advertising as much as other people do? I'm not very familiar with it. I don't use it much at all. So
The promoted pins can do fairly well, but even just the organic pins do amazing. And they've actually just lifted their affiliate link restriction, so I think we're going to see a lot of affiliate stuff created on Pinterest again.
It really does depend on what you're selling, though, doesn't it? I think of Pinterest as kind of the online lifestyle mag. You know, if big glossy images in a magazine would have worked as advertising for your product, then Pinterest is likely to work as advertising for your product. But if it isn't very visual, I don't think Pinterest is a very good match at all. It's very difficult to sell software through Pinterest.
Yeah, but physical stuff. And you see a wide variety of stuff, like apparently even like everything from obviously fashion is kind of like made for Pinterest. But a lot of other stuff, like even like car-related stuff, for example, does pretty well.
Yeah, I've seen certainly, you know, anything to do with classic cars and car collecting, anything to do with interior design, most fashion or crafts, and of course
Crafty
cookery.
stuff. Yeah,
Cookery
crafty
does
stuff for
very
sure.
well. But yeah, it does seem to be more the arty side of things, and definitely the things that are very visual.
Yeah.
When you really need to sort of talk about a product, I don't find Pinterest works very well at all. And you're not going to be able to sell insurance or you know, ISAs or you know, savings projects, and those don't do well. Yeah, I'm cars and slippers. Yeah, I can see those doing well. I'm not sure about lavatories, you know. But if somebody says, you know, oh, how would I create content for that? Well, maybe, you know, if you've got fancy design and it's very visual, go for it. I can imagine cleaning products actually doing quite well, because you could do your before and after pictures.
I see a lot of cleaning tips, like how to clean XYZ.
Oh yeah, like anything that you would share to like a mom's group or something does really well there too. Like just like educational bits, projects. Teachers love Pinterest.
Yeah.
I must admit there are some things where I think video will always do better. Vine can be quite good for things that have a short visual demonstration.
I think the videos that we're seeing a lot on Facebook, for example, where it's a video of a recipe or a crafty thing, and instead of having sound, they have the text on the bottom. so that people that are scrolling, there's a lot of times I'll be scrolling through Facebook and I will see something and I'll sit and I'll watch it. I won't turn the sound on, but because it has subtext on it, I'll watch it.
Yeah, I do think it's very good if they've got scroll.
Eventually, have a quick view through on what the process is without reading in detail things. And, yeah. I don't cook a lot, but I find that very attractive.
I've found videos on Facebook for home repairs to be really helpful. When I've had to replace a door handle or some piece of plumbing, and having somebody walk me through the steps I need to take is useful.
Yeah, I've sat through quite a few instructional YouTube videos for various things, everything from software to arts and crafts, carpentry. Those can be really, really good. Hey, William. So, Fab, what have you been up to this week? Changing rooms?
Yeah, mainly trying to forecast, not really forecast, but probably look where we are against the kind of search demand there is out there. Yeah, there's been the main activity. And funny enough, on forecasting is how people take it so differently. So if you ask 10 people how they're going to approach it, it's going to be every time different, and also depending on the business, it's going to be some companies, they're very kind of maniac in going down to details, but then at the same time, you are wasting a week on something that you could, otherwise you could spend time doing it rather than becoming super accurate. So yeah.
It's one of those things that really did get a lot less accurate, that got obfuscated. In the early days of the keyword tools for pay-per-click, they were pretty consistent at trying to give you accurate data on how many searches for a term, and you could be specific or you could be general. If you used a broad keyword, it would give you all of the searches that included that. If you wanted to be specific, you could be specific, and there wasn't much obfuscation. But these days, pretty much since around the same time as Google going to not provided, they knew you weren't going to be able to check as easily other ways anyway, so it just seemed to get a lot less accurate and a lot more confusing.
I'm using Search Console API, but still you don't have AdWords data as in the past, and still I don't trust much of the numbers sometimes. That's why it's good to have an idea, but then more than probably a quick snapshot, no, because you end up doing hypotheses. Most of the time they end up being accurate, but then you realize that it was not worth being so accurate, because there's always that element of luck plus other factors that can.
Yeah, it's something I notice sometimes is that the shift to not provided, I find myself trusting some of the data I get from Google a lot less, because I can't cross-check it now. That therefore assume that it could be wrong, or it could be in the best light, or it could be manipulated in various ways, and I don't have an easy way to check it. It's made me trust them less, which I'm sure wasn't their original intention, but from what I'm hearing when I talk to people, I'm not the only one who's feeling that way. Bill, Jen, have you found anything along those sort of lines?
I guess it's hard because it's the only data we really have. There's tools that try to give us more information, but they're still based on that keyword data, right? I'm happy we have it because it's better than nothing, for sure. But grain of salt, I guess.
Yeah. It's better than nothing, but I do feel it's worse than what we had before.
They do give us like the CTR data and impression data, which we wouldn't have had, which can sometimes be useful because you can definitely look at the data and see, okay, what do I have high impressions for and 0 clicks? What's not quite matching up there, and adjust content if needed.
It's been a while since I've had to explain to somebody the difference between broad match keyword terms and exact match, and why the terms that they picked using broad match numbers weren't as good keyword choices as they thought they might be.
Yes. Overly broad keywords have been, one of the real banes of the industry forever, and I don't think that's ever going away. I think people are getting a little bit better about it, but I'm not sure it's for the right reasons. I think sometimes it's simply that they view more specific as cheaper, rather than, most of the time the more specific is actually better targeted, and you're not pissing off as many people.
And you're usually going to convert more on something that's highly targeted as opposed to something that's so broad where maybe it's not exactly what they're looking for.
And sometimes people don't quite see the value in that either. I was working with a group of food scientists, and they were selling natural coloring and natural flavoring. So they wanted to optimize one page for food coloring. And I said, that's what people go to the supermarket to buy to make sure that their chocolate cake can be called red velvet cake. It's food coloring.
Yeah.
Not the type of food coloring that you sell, where you want to sell something to a bunch of manufacturers that cause a product to be a certain color.
It's one of those interesting ones where it is both. It is the term for both. Usually, when you have, when you look on the labels of food, food colorings will be there, and this is the manufacturer's label, and what the manufacturers refer to it as. And it's not what you mean by food coloring in your usage, but actually, it's the same stuff.
So manufacturers may search for that, but they know that they're going to get the stuff from the supermarkets too.
Yeah, that's usually one of the ones where I look long tail for the refinement. If most of the time when you search for food coloring, you're getting the supermarket type end of the deal rather than the manufacturer's end type of the deal, then I will make sure I will put manufacturing or manufacturers or industrial or whatever is the keywords I'm finding are the modifiers that people can use to get specific. Because if your first search doesn't work, you usually add a word. What's the word that most people will add, and that's what you then need to do.
Right. I was happy using the phrase natural color with them. Because that was more likely something the manufacturer would search for, and that's what they were specializing in. So it was a good alternative.
Yeah. Well, I know you said last week you joined Local Guides. How's that been going, Bill? What have you been up to this week within that sort of remit?
Last thing I did with them was I submitted a bunch of photographs of one of the local rancho adobes, and a mission I've been to the week before. So you don't get extra points for giving them lots of photos, but I gave them lots of photos.
Yeah.
Because I figured somebody's going to go visit one of those places. It'll give them an idea of what they might see.
It's interesting. I was doing a bit of sort of history research of my childhood and looking through Google Maps and Google Images for pictures. It was amazing how many of those things hadn't been preserved. I couldn't find any pictures of my secondary school, the school that I started at 11. And I know it had changed because I went back after school as a technician to work in that school, and it had already been amalgamated with the 5 biggest schools had kind of all got together as a super school.
Yeah, one of my favorite places to go when I was growing up was burial mounds, Indian burial mounds outside of Cincinnati. And I know they changed the name of the place because it used to be called Fort Apache. And I don't think there were any Apaches who lived in the area. So I think they just decided they would be a little bit more respectful and choose maybe the right Indian tribe name in describing it. But, you know.
Yes, but at least they didn't, just make up a horror film about it. It seems to be what people usually do with Indian burial grounds. I think there's about 18 different horror films that are all based on Indian. And of course, some of the tribes I knew the customs of best were the ones that instead, put the bodies out for the birds to take the pieces skywards. So it was kind of burials, eh? Okay. I know some of the tribes did. I don't know which ones. Which ones? Our burial mounds are sort of a different matter over here. Most of ours are sort of Bronze Age, where we've got the famous tours and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing some of the things they've been able to dig up with those.
Guys walking along fields in central Britain, and they come across Viking swords and shields from thousands of years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. It's certainly interesting stuff. But some of the best discoveries they made was a book called The Bog People, and it was a peat bog. They found either it had been a burial ground. I think basically poor people's had just had their bodies sort of dumped out there in the marsh. But because of the amount of peat there, it had perfectly preserved these bodies. Literally turned the skin to leather, preserved them entirely. So it was some of the best recorded, the best preserved bodies they'd found. They could still get fingerprints and toe prints from the bodies. It's one of those things, isn't it, where most cultures it's only the rich that we really get to see the bodies of. The ones who could afford the proper funerals and the proper burials. The extreme of that, of course, being the Egyptian culture with the pharaohs in their tombs, perfectly preserved, mummification. Was the poor, even if there was mummification available, which sometimes there was, it was generally a cheaper, lesser standard, and then they weren't, put away in a nice, dry, carefully made pyramid, but the body buried and didn't preserve it as well. I do love my history, in case anybody has never noticed this. Hey William, how are you? What have you been up to this week?
I've been doing fantastic. I've actually been on this Google local guide kick. It's been kind of fun. Just kind of troubleshooting everything that I've actually worked with in the business environment as well as in the forums. And it's kind of helped me to understand, okay, there's a lot of people that have not verified their listing, nor have an image, or their store hours of operation. So most of them just have a telephone number and an address if the market's correct.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of businesses who don't see Google as that important yet. I think, the fastest ones to adapt have been the bars and restaurants. I think the slowest to adapt, and probably quite rightly, are things like you know, the tobacconist, the little corner grocery store. These are things you go past anyway. They pick up passing traffic. Nobody goes searching for them. Most of the time, their traffic is built on the fact that they're closer to you than all the cheaper shops you know about. It's very rare that corner grocery store is actually cheaper than the supermarket.
Well, what's neat about those corner grocery stores is I found a bunch of those coffee shops and like little hole in the walls you never imagined finding. And I'm actually going there with my wife and kids and like, whoa, that's a cool place. But I would have never known about it if I didn't take a picture of it.
Yeah.
And put it on the map. It wasn't on the map in the beginning, but now that it's on the map, you walk into the restaurant or the coffee shop, they're like, hey, William, thanks again. Hey, here's another spot you can take a picture of. You know, and that's exciting to see because they understand the value of the internet. Now that they're getting people to their location, they had no idea this even existed. And it's free. And all they have to do is fill out the right information, get the postcard and verify it, log in and do their thing. But I did find on the highest test I did was not the shopping centers or that little mall or even the coffee shop that I just mentioned. It's actually the corporate offices that are actually outskirts of that. And most of them have issues where they don't have an image. They might be in one beautiful building, but they don't even have the picture of that building. You know, it's like, okay, stand outside with your cell phone, take a picture of it, and put it on the map. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of echo. I don't know if that's me.
Question about corporate office. Is that okay? Because like I had a chat earlier this week with a Google My Places guy, and he was like that we shouldn't, because we are an online company and we shouldn't register as local, but actually we don't have customer coming into our office, but we have like people we deal with as a business, so they should be opening hours and location anyway for people to play.
Yeah, Fabio, the whole thing I think with corporate like that thinking is if I have to go and travel for a plane, I take a plane, I get a taxi to your location, and I'm going to your office for a meeting, but you're not even on the map to get the actual map result for my address, so I can't get directions to your office. I might be going circles around the block to find you, and I'll probably get upset as a customer by the time I get to you, so I'm probably not going to be a happy customer. But what if I was able to just substitute that with a picture of the building or something cool? I mean, like, look at the cool couches you got there. I mean, there's probably a cool interior show off. Personally. It's like, okay, cool. But what Google's looking for, I think, is really the front part of the office. Your entrance, your address, especially. You know, that you're actually a valid company. But at the same time, is what do they see that on the cell phone? And they're coming in on a taxi, what are they actually picking up on their phone? What do you look for? You know, what are you looking like? Is it still branded?
No, totally. It's just it seems like there's a bit of a disconnect still, and also because you manage the brand page from there, but then they don't give you much support for brand page and so on. It seems there's a bit of disconnect between actual retail as like a place where I go and shop, and the rest of the stuff that could be still tagged and you know, it could still be rich content and location information, but it's not really classified for them as shop where you go in and buy a pair of shoes.
And that's part of my study right now that I'm trying to constantly conceptualize and try to figure out the difference between both. You know, I see a lot more of the shopping centers being verified and doing what they need to be able to do, but then you start going into corporate America and there's nothing there. And so I think there's a lack of education of, okay, I still have to have a map listing. Maybe it might not be so elaborate as the shopping center or the restaurant that I might be going to lunch to.
Yeah. Well, to go back to your question, Fab, I still think office hours are important if you're going to have phone numbers. If you've got a phone number and people can't phone you 24 hours a day, then you need to have office hours.
Yeah.
I've always been surprised, you know, Google, international company, but apparently they only have office hours a couple of times a month, and John Mueller's always there. It only lasts about an hour.
To be honest, like I spend something like 40 minutes on the my business customer support, and the quality of the customer support is extremely poor. I understand that if they have to provide hyper good service to all the small businesses out there, it's going to be quite of a cost. And I've seen a few times that they also try to suggest you to fill those information, so they get, like, I guess, user to collect that data as well. But like the actual customer support, oh my God, it's a bit of a nightmare. I'm not sure we would ever solve that just with the guy of the.
Obviously, they had some user groups that jumped in early on and were pretty good at providing support. People like Martin Shrevington in the early days, if you were using Google Plus to claim your local listing and things like that, there was lots of help available through groups like that. Unfortunately, of course, the obvious happens. They then want to monetize. They want to turn this into a business, and the once helpful community starts to become a railroad only interested in marching you to the payout desk. And,
see, guys, I have not seen a problem. I've had they've had problems and issues with phone support with Google My Business, but I'll be honest with you, I answer a lot of questions in the forums.
I was on the phone. Sorry.
It
was over the phone. I tried to go through the most standard way ever. I tried to get someone on the phone. That was when I didn't post on the forum yet, or.
Well, yeah, even when you call the number, when the automated system actually calls you back, and then you go to an actual representative, and they ask you for your information as well as your basic your email address to verify yourself. But at the same time, is most of the people that I've even been on the phone support before, many times for my clients. But sometimes you get one of those people that just don't understand what your question is. But most of the time, I'm giving them the reviews or that survey up for the call. They've always answered my calls, not because I'm a TC or anything like that. I have to ask the same questions everybody else is doing, and I'm finding that I just haven't had that problem. Let me know if I can help you.
No, it's not the. In this case, sorry, maybe I didn't phrase it well. It was 2 out of 3 guys not getting the question and not getting what the problem was, and because probably they were not managing directly the brand page from their side, and then they couldn't point me. They either pointed me to AdWords or it was not the actual way in which they were answering to that. It was more around understanding the real issue.
Gotcha. Okay. Like I said, if you ever have a problem, let me know too. You get my contact information.
Oh, I see Anton has joined the audience as well. Yeah, we'll have to find out whether he's just snuck away early from his one, or I think it'll have finished. I don't think he'll have bailed on his own.
Well, you never know. You get some people talking.
So, Bill, I know you've been having a look at what Apple's been up to lately.
Yes, I watched the presentation they put on earlier this week on Tuesday, where they talked about working with developers to update Siri and Messenger and extensions to Apple Maps. And I think them doing that is going to come a long way towards making them have a lot wider range of services available to people. And it may strengthen how they provide search. So they may turn into a search engine backwards by Siri becoming more useful.
Yes, which certainly would be interesting to see. I've always been interested, are they going to keep developing Siri, or is Siri kind of the prototype for what's coming next, and Siri is sort of the testing ground and playground? It's ultimately going to be a branding decision. It depends on whether by the time they're ready they feel that people think they know what Siri can do and it's not enough, and therefore they'll need a new brand, or will people be interested in how far Siri has come? Branding is always a fun exercise. Do you go with the brand people know and underestimate, or do we go with the brand that gives us the novelty value but may not carry the weight and the effort that's gone in?
I think it's kind of interesting that Google is developing more towards working with local guides, but they're also working on building ontologies to build better classification to search engines and describe what different web pages have based on ontologies. At the heart of Siri is what they called an active ontology. So you could ask Siri to find a good Italian restaurant and book a reservation for 3 people. So Siri has to have some ability to decide what a good Italian restaurant is, and then call the restaurant and provide space for your party that you're trying to get there. So it builds search into it, and it builds understanding sentiment behind reviews into it.
Yeah. One thing is for sure, there's never been a dull time in the internet, and certainly not in search marketing, but it really feels like the next 10 years are going to be exceptionally interesting. We've got so many different fields opening up all at once, and there's this feeling sometimes that search as we knew it was a pebble thrown in the water, and that the ripples are going out in all directions, and that as those ripples expand, so the full area that it covers just gets bigger and bigger and in all directions. And at the moment that's really exciting because there are so many different directions to go. Of course, it means even more opportunities for specialization in the next few years. I can certainly see voice search becoming its own specialization for a while there's a crossover. But there's going to be so much more as well. I could even see schema becoming its own specialization.
I think it's already its own specialization. A lot of people they either have to use a plugin or they have to get someone to do their markup for them, because it's unless you have like a coding background, it's not very intuitive for someone trying to figure out what the heck's going on if they want to mark up the recipes, for example.
That's why I started getting like so fascinated with schema. I'm still learning, like I'm not anywhere near like anything, but it was because, or with coding I should say, because I knew how important schema is, and so like, but I didn't know what to do with it, and so I needed to get the foundation first, foundational terms.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sites that aren't even taking advantage of it because they don't realize that there is stuff they could be marking up that they're not, and a lot of times it takes them seeing their competitor doing something with markup and then being like, oh, well, our competitor is doing this, how do I make that happen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you should have someone on your team who's paying attention.
So one of the things that I see asked a lot, but actually probably not as much as it should be asked, are, as we get more and more specialists, what are the core skills that everyone should have in working with basically online marketing? Even the social media managers, what are the common skills that all people in online marketing should have, whether an SEO, whether they're a developer, whether they're a social media manager, whatever.
I think we'll see less of jack of all trades. Like when I first got in this industry, there were no experts on schema. There were no experts on like all these little things you see now. Basically, we had to teach ourselves everything and do it all because it was very difficult if you needed something specialized to actually find someone who is specialized. Most of us, if we needed to figure out how to make something work, we had to figure out how to make it work ourselves because there just wasn't this cottage industry, I guess, almost, of little people being experts in little things, whether it's schema or local or maps issues or, you know, all these different things, WordPress even. So I think we're getting less away from the types of, from when I got in the industry where we had to do it all, to now it's like, okay, let's find someone who can do this, let's find someone who can do that, rather than self-teaching now.
And of course, there's the two different types of specialists. You've got the specialist who really is a specialist. You know, they've got all of the broad skills, but they're particularly good at one thing, and they are one of the best in the world at that thing. So you might be talking about, say, Mike Blumenthal and local. His depth of knowledge on local is second to none because he is in those particular trenches all of the time. I know some link builders who, you know, they know all of the general SEO, but they really, really worked that niche and they know it second to none. Yeah. And then there's some of the people who call themselves specialists who didn't learn it all. They started somewhere, and that thing that they started in is what they're now calling themselves a specialist in. But they've only got a general practitioner's knowledge of that one area. And that's where I really struggle. That's not a specialist, that's just somebody who hasn't finished learning the basics yet.
Yeah.
I set a high benchmark because I am a generalist still. If I was a specialist, it would be a specialist in strategy or the psychology of search, which usually aren't called specializations. So I'm very much a generalist. You're not a specialist if I know more than you in that field. You have to impress me with your local knowledge. You have to impress me with your link building or your copywriting for you to be what I would call a specialist. You've got to be at least my equal and preferably a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely lots of cases where you see people calling themselves experts, and I actually see this at conferences a lot, where they'll be speaking about XYZ and calling, you know, saying I'm an expert or a guru, which is like, you know, a buzzword that people use, and you start listening to what they're saying, and you're like, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. But meanwhile, because they're up on stage, they're calling themselves an expert. Someone's put them up on stage. They assume they must be an expert. And then just bad information just gets, you know, carried on and carried on. And people tweet little things because they heard it at a conference. And meanwhile, some of us are like, yeah, that's not right. And if you do that, it will actually hurt your website.
I'm just putting out a link because apparently David can just jump in. I'm going to call up Jarno's comment as well. There we go. I think the most overlooked advantage of using schema markup is that it allows you to design an extensive data model one can use to create new content. That certainly is very, very true. I would like to see Google doing away with its or having the Google local stuff as only one way in. I would love for schema to completely be able to stand alone as a way of managing your Google local listing, and there's no reason it shouldn't. There really isn't.
Well, I think the problem is you're going to have all those local businesses that won't have a clue anything about schema, and it would hurt them if it went full schema, because you know, your mom and pop shop who just finally figured out, you know, they got someone to, or they did the one button press WordPress install, they're not going to know that, and it would actually hurt a lot of little businesses, I think, if they went that route.
Yeah, it certainly is one of those things. Hey, David, glad you could jump in. Bit of adult conversation for a change. Or as close as we get to it.
Sorry, my computer's lagging. Yes, the kids are in front of the TV. They just got home from school, so I'm like, I'll just jump on for a few minutes while they're occupied. Yes. Yes. And plus, you're talking about schema, so I have to get on here.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, but I totally agree with what you were saying about, the newbies with schema and when they do it wrong. I mean, I was dealing with a client who thought they were getting technical, and they managed to screw up all the link structures in their entire website by installing some plugin. And the problem is I put a lot of the blame squarely on WordPress in trying to make it so seemingly idiot-proof and beginner-friendly and everything that suddenly you have people just doing, irreparable damage to their entire web presence because they think that, I can click 2 buttons, hit a few plugins, and suddenly it's, SEO'd, and optimized for the web, and then they realize, I just screwed my website. There's no traffic coming in. And we're paid to fix it because they're too cheap at the beginning.
There's always been that danger with any content management system, really, going right back, but WordPress especially, in that it brands itself as so simple. You don't need to learn anything. Look, there is nothing so simple you do not need to learn it when you're basing your business on this. I'm sorry, maths is pretty simple, but you try doing your accounts yourself based on the fact that you were okay in first grade maths, you're going to come into trouble. And similarly, if your website is going to be a significant part of your business, if you're hoping it will become a significant part of your business, then investing in the necessary knowledge is essential. You can either learn it or you can hire it, but either way, you need to have it.
Well, it's like the old argument, we fix $5 haircuts. It's where web in general has become the race to the bottom of commoditization, that suddenly, the web could be the great equalizer, but at the same time, it's really not. There needs to be professionals to do things like schema and to understand what people are, what you're doing behind the scenes in order to do it correctly. And yeah, I've been putting out a lot of fires with clients that came to me recently doing just that. They thought they could go the cheap route, and then suddenly I have a client that has won 2 Grammy Awards, and they're getting less traffic to their website than my wife's food blog that she hasn't updated in 5 years.
Yeah.
It's...
Some things never change. Years ago, not that long after leaving school, I worked in a tool store. And it was one of the typical ones. We had all the specialist tools for the real professionals, but like a lot of stores, we also had, the cheap Japanese import tools, the ones that are mass-produced and only a few bucks on the front for the odd jobbers, the DIYers, the people who literally need a hammer because they've just bought a shelf to put up and don't have a hammer. And you'd get people coming in and picking up the tools and say, are these any good? And it was my boss there who said, no, those are cheap. We have good, those are cheap. If you want good, you're starting to get into the professional grade of tool. If you're going to want to put up, a few pictures, hammer in a couple of nails, those will do, but they're cheap. And you need to understand there is a difference. And I think businesses are in the same position as a lot of those very amateur DIYers who don't understand that, there is cheap and there is good, and they are opposite ends of the spectrum. It's a line, and your position along that line from cheap to good is a predictable thing, but you don't get both. You get a balance, but you don't get both because they are opposite ends of the spectrum.
What's the triangle? Cheap, faster, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. Marketing, anybody who's studied marketing should know this because, we have this thing called the marketing mix in which the product itself, the placement of the business, the price that you're going to ask, and the amount of promotion you need are all these sliding scales that relate to each other and depend on each other. If your product's really, really good and your placement of your business is great, you won't need to promote it very much, and the price may not have to be very high, but it'll have to be enough to, you know, cover the quality of the materials and the rent on the perfect placed business. So it's not going to be cheap either. And understanding that these things all relate to each other, I don't know, how do so many businesses miss this when they're starting to buy for themselves? I do worry sometimes about the new entrepreneur culture where everyone's an entrepreneur. The number of emails I get these days that use the word entrepreneur or talk about startups is ridiculous. And
everyone's a CEO.
Well, no, and as Jennifer was saying, like, you know, everyone's a guru. They are a business of one, you know, and with no case studies, no clients, you know, worth mentioning, but they're gurus and they're being sought after for their, you know, their business advice of how I got 100,000 followers on Twitter in 24 hours without trying anything.
Yep.
Yep.
And it's one of the things, generally, any time somebody talks about easy money, even if they don't use those actual words, if they are talking about easy money, what they mean is the money they're about to talk you out of. Every single time. Because there's no such thing as easy money. It doesn't get into anybody's pocket easily. It doesn't come out of their pocket easily.
If it's so easy, why do they want to give it to you?
Yeah. You know, most things are hard work, and that's why people are prepared to pay for them. And it's something I think SEOs and anybody involved in web marketing needs to understand as well. Yes, there are tools, there are lots of things that can make your life easy. Easy is your enemy. Easy is why people don't need to pay you. When it's easy, they can do it themselves. What they need you for is the stuff that isn't easy, the stuff that takes time, the stuff that takes understanding and knowledge. And sometimes they're not at the position yet to recognize that they need those things. Great. They're not your customers. Stop pitching to them. Stop wasting your time. They will get there. They will find out that they've spent a lot of money and got nowhere and start to buy smarter, and that's when they become your target market.
Well said.
Bill, you're looking a bit thoughtful.
No, just going to a afternoon full of people who are entrepreneurs and involved in startups, and they're all CEOs.
Yep.
I've got to figure out how to navigate around San Diego. I haven't really spent much time downtown San Diego, so that'll be fun.
I hate those.
Bill, you need to find your way to my client's restaurant, the Crack Shack.
The Crack Shack.
Oh, you have got to check it out, Bill. It's a great site. It's a great.
You have to go check out the Crack Shack.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. It's a legitimate restaurant.
What do they specialize in?
Eggs and chickens.
Eggs and chickens, obviously.
Okay.
Oh.
But isn't it a great
downtown
name
San Diego
for-
that
Eggs and chickens and fries. The Crack Shack.
Yeah.
It's in San Diego?
David, if you get the chance, drop a link in the event chat for people.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, they should check this one out. I got the chance to see this a little bit as it was developing. David's in a couple of groups that I belong to, and I got to see snapshots of this as it was coming along. I loved the principle. I loved the marketing generally and the ethos of this business, the way they've put things together. It's a well-marketed company, and it really does sort of illustrate the point.
What was nice is that, it was one of the first times in a long time where they gave us the ability to art direct the photographer. Because oftentimes, the owner will art direct the photographer, or the photographer will just do their thing. And here we really got to do a full concept production and say, like, these are the photos we want. We want this, and we don't want it to look like a conventional food photography site where, they'll take pictures of the empty restaurant.
Right.
But
imagine you here, your party, sitting in these seats.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, here it was like the pictures on the front page are people taking their first bite of some of the food. So it's kind of fun where we like really got to do like a photosphere, not a photosphere, but like a photo booth type of setup. But it's a big plane going over my head.
Yeah, we got the link there now in the description. But I like this comment from Michael Sean David. He says, "You can't afford a pro to do it proper now. When will you be able to afford one? Who's going to have to fix it?" It's something we used to say way back with a colleague of mine, Lee Coldbrand, when we were working at Fresh Egg. Our standard saying was, "You buy cheap, you buy twice." And this is still true. And most importantly, you usually have to buy a lot more expensively the second time to fix all the problems of the cheap solution the first time. There are false economies, and often this is one of the major ones. When you don't appreciate how much you need to spend, you often underspend and get something that is going to cost more to fix than it would have to bought right in the first place. I know we've all seen that at times. It's tying into this thing of startups. My issue with startups are brilliant. They are brave, and 95% of them are going to the wall. There's no two ways about it. That's the statistics. Anyone who gets into startups without realizing that, wake up. 95% of small businesses that start up fail within their first 5 years. They never make back their operating costs for those 5 years. It doesn't matter how clever you think you are. I know professional venture capitalists who have spent years doing nothing but studying businesses. They pick and choose very carefully who they invest in, and with all of that, 80% of their investments go under without making back the money. 80%.
Well, a lot of times they just find stupid interns to work for free.
Surely there aren't any of those stupid interns left anymore. I mean, where can we find people stupid enough to work for nothing?
All the experience.
Some of the jobs I worked at, I feel like an intern. I wasn't getting paid. Come on.
It is one of those things that if you are going into business, you have my utmost respect, my utmost support, but you need to understand you are going against the odds. You've got slightly more chance of winning at blackjack in Vegas than of making your business a success. You'll just feel in more control over your business, but actually the odds are about the same. It's a tough gig. It is a very tough gig.
Just to jump in for a sec, but actually one of the hardest things that we've been dealing with is making a product and trying to be a startup within our business of marketing a tool, and yet balancing the demands of creating a new product and marketing it while at the same time managing our business and our billable work and everything else that goes with servicing our existing clients while we're building this product. I don't know how anyone does it, and it's our third time doing it. Is it just an impossible task that we're setting for ourselves?
You can't have them. Something that I was told is you can't have the marketing person and the developer be the same person. They can't be the same thing. You can't have, you need to split up the marketing and the PR. That was what I was asked, are you doing marketing and PR? I'm like, well, yeah, I'm a marketing / PR person. And Dave was like, no. That's not how it can be done successfully. So that was his opinion.
I don't know, sometimes I think can be valuable. If your IT, if the guys making the website understand the SEO aspect or understand the marketing aspect, I think there would be a lot less problems, because a lot of times, developers will make this gorgeous, pretty Flash website that obviously is going to suck for SEO, and if they had the knowledge of both, I think there'd be a lot less problems and a lot more sites doing better.
Well, can't you
Well,
like handle something like that with Asana or like Slack, where you can still have everyone seeing all the channels, but not necessarily actively developing them?
Tools, but they're not the same as actual communication.
Mm.
I mean, Bill and I.
Like, do you mean like in the same room?
We go back a long way, and a lot of the people we met in the early days of SEO were the people who'd learned this through applying it to their own business. They were the marketer, they were the developer, they were the SEO, they were everybody, and they've been exceptionally successful with it. So yes, you can do it all, but don't think it's going to be easy. Do think that it's going to mean you're working sometimes 20-hour days on your project. Yeah, it's hard work, but yes, I think it absolutely is possible. More importantly, I think the business where everyone knows everybody else's job well enough to respect it and respect its disciplines is stronger. I like open plan offices for that. If you can't, have a very small team that all know each other intimately, then an open plan office is the next best thing, where you can be in each other's business and see what each other are up to and have conversations about things instantly. That really works. I think the better you know each other, the more cross-pollination of ideas you've got going on, but also the more nimble you are in being able to spot that that guy's problem is something your guy can fix.
Going back to the original question, I think, David, were you asking the fact of like as an agency to balance the time that you spend on like doing a super good job on your client versus building up product, or at least something that you could suggest in you?
Yeah, Anton, exactly. So my company, we're a service provider. So we build websites, web development, strategy for our clients. But at the same time, we're building product on the side, the UTM FTW, which we want that to become a legitimate product in and of itself, not necessarily independent of our business, but that can stand on its own and, generate revenue. But it's kind of hard to balance the side project with the client work, and be able to do both at the same time. I have to pay the bills, but I know that this is the future of our business, perhaps.
Another thing that I have seen, like before from like my few years spent in agencies, that when agencies try hard to build a product that is not a product, which at the end is a service. So you want to package something as a product, and they spend a crazy amount of time on finding a way to build a product which, going back at the origin of it, is like a service that people, and is based on very much on the people that you have. Like it could be a framework that you use or whatsoever, but like at the end is not. But in this case, I can see it's a tool. So, but yeah.
I've literally just realised that we've gone way past time, so I'm going to pull the plug on the live broadcast. Naturally, we can carry on talking behind the scenes as we often do, but thanks everyone for joining us this week. We will see you next week. Take care.
Thank you. Bye now.
Yeah.